Hello everyone, I'm Eunice Torowi, a current student at the University of Goroka. I specifically study as a postgraduate student undertaking diploma in education. Basically, this is HDY 5310, one of the courses have take here at the University of Goroka, and it's to do with educational psychology. I will basically discuss on the child abuse as an issue that affects the education of the child in and around the country. Child abuse has become a chronic and common issue in the country today. These issues are severely hitting the education of many children, which damage the conscious development. Therefore, what is child abuse? Child abuse is defined as the behavior that harms young people under 18 years of age, either physically or emotionally. There are 4 different types of child abuse, and they all have the negative impact on the life of children and their education. The first one is the physical abuse. Physical abuse is the abuse that is physically done against a child that results in harm for the child's health. For example, hitting with hands, objects, slapping and punching, kicking. These are all examples of physical child abuse. The second one is the emotional child abuse. The emotional child abuse, or in other words, is the physiology or the psychological abuse, is incident where the child is isolated or the caregiver does not provide an appropriate and supportive environment that includes restriction of moving, blaming, threatening, frightening, and rejection. The third one is the sexual child abuse. The sexual child abuse is a form of child abuse that includes sexual activity with a minor. In other words, it's a form of child abuse in which an adult or a older adolescent uses a child for sexual stimulation. And the final one is the neglect. Neglect is when a parent or caregiver fail to provide for a child's basic needs. The child might be left hungry or dirty or without proper clothing, shelter, supervision, or health care. Children have a greater chance of poor academic performance when they suffered abuse or neglected. According to academic research performed at Brown University, April 1996, it was noted that abused children have harder time maintaining good grades in school due to their stressful home lives, which leads to lack of focus in the classroom. Basically, I'll be stressing more on emotional abuse that have impact on children's education. Comparing to other abuses, they are more okay than what emotional abuse is, because emotional abuse have a greater impact on education. It deals with a conscious development of a child. Okay, what is emotional abuse again? Emotional abuse is the emotional maltreatment or emotional neglect or rejection of a child. It is sometimes called a psychological abuse and can seriously damage a child's emotional health and development. Emotional abuse causes emotional harassment. The emotional abuse of our children or the children, the teachers, schools, and the sensations, violence of our modern institutions. All students are said to follow all those rules, but there are also some rules that are no discipline. Okay, emotional abuse creates a selfish, self-elation. This puts down their own self-respect. Child that creates a cheap thinking about themselves. This kind of abuses is created by their own mates, teachers, or principal in the disciplinary school environment. Okay, to upgrade and shoot oneself in a social environment, a school plays a vital role in developing and nourishing them with set of disciplinary rules. Okay, there are different forms of emotional abuse. Isolation is the first type or the forms of emotional abuse that affects the learning of a particular child. Okay, the isolation is physical confinement or limiting freedom with a person's own environment. Meaning to say that when the child is single or it's out in a group of like a student, publicly it's labeled as a loser or too stupid to follow the rules. Okay, for example, even unknowingly, the child may be labeling or may be in a separate class but without a friend or someone to talk and say a idea with, something like that. Or for example, if a child has a poor memory but teachers label them or he or she is having a disability without knowing the symptoms generates this kind of labels. So many teachers nowadays in class are ready to complain but are not ready to take steps for improving their students. Even if they do, they say partially between students. They are concerned with ranking students, not with non-ranking students. Motivate ranking students and degrading students with low marks. The second form is the degradation. Of course, changes at the classroom. We happen to be in efficient so supportive. Okay, sometimes teachers unknowingly at a child by giving not by what only negative labeling but also degrading by various means. If a child is weak in academic, it doesn't mean he or she is weak. A failure person in all. Sometimes teachers blaming parents, stating child's parents are the main reason for poor upbringing of the child, which is always not right. For example, a child when poor in academics or little mischiefs, there are teachers who degrade that particular child by his or her dressing sense, looks, and other appearance. If to be noticed, the blame on child, it might be little dull in studies or maybe under poverty line too. Okay, the third one is the rejection. Refusing to know knowledge a person's value worth communicating to a person that he or she is useless or inferior. Devaluing his thoughts and feelings. Of course, the sad thing is it is a lot worse than just your own personal feelings about it. Yeah. Okay, the final one is public humiliation. Exposing a person to unwanted attention, using social exposure to manipulate and control, encourage others to exclude and harass. Verbal harassment, unethical punishment, scrutinizing a child in such a manner is humiliating. For example, imagine that your group leader actually had the power to confine you to that box in front of your other friends and colleagues. It could be bad enough to begin with, but it could be even worse under conditions of force and duress. So, emotional abuse of a child can result in serious emotional and behavioral problems, including depression, lack of attachment, emotional bond to a parent or guardian, low cognitive ability, and educational achievement, and poor social skills. Okay, the children also lack creativity, persistence, and enthusiasm. Indeed, children who experience rejections are more likely than expected children to exhibit hostility, aggressive or passive-aggressive behavior, to be extremely dependent, to have negative opinions of themselves and their abilities, to be emotional, unstable, or unresponsive, and to have a negative perception of the world around them. So if you find someone in your nearby community or village who are, especially the children who are facing the child abuse, it's good that we carry out an awareness and make sure that the child is safe. So in order to do that, we must report such case to a child protective community or someone who can look into that problem and solve the problem, right? So as a teacher, a good teacher teaches everything, treat their student as their own children. So most of the teachers, they fail this part. They fail their part in teaching the student the right way. Instead, they are spoiling the kids or the children and make the things even worse. So a teacher, their teaching create tremendous changes in a student. But if a teacher or has teacher abuses by any kind, then us the teachers becomes the reason for the child or the children failure in life. That's all. That's the end of my presentation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing it, and we hope to present another time again. Thank you.